We're your government. Put this into your body. Is it good for me? No, it's bad for you, but we're telling you it's good for you. It's terrible. Welcome back, my freedom-loving friend, to the JP Reacts channel, where we like to call out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants. And that's exactly what we're doing today in the name of food. Now, of course, we all know our government, beloved individuals that they are, they would never tell you to take something that's bad for you. And they would certainly never tell you taking something that's bad for you is actually good for you. They would never do that. We know certain things they've maybe done that with, but then there's also food. Now, I've personally been studying nutrition for 21 years at this point. I think it's one thing when junk food is just like looked at as neutral, like, yeah, take it if you want, don't, doesn't matter. Is it bad for you? Yeah, it's pretty bad for you. There's a reason why so many people in our country have diseases, and heart disease rates and cancer rates are sky high. There is a reason, but I'm all right with that. Like junk food, eat it if you want, have it available. I think that's important in the name of freedom. But when it comes to hypocrisy and deception, specifically deception, where our government tells us foods that are objectively bad for us are actually good for us. Now we've crossed the line. We're in a line of absolute deception, tyranny. So I want to look at that with you today. There's a great video displaying some interesting findings. In this video, we'll take a look at together. It's from Jesse Watters of Fox News, taking a look at the government's recommendation, the food pyramid funded by food industry, which has our government really pushing on the beautiful freedom lovers of America, the idea that junk foods are actually good for you, and then good, healthy, nutritious foods, meat and eggs, those are the bad ones. You don't want to eat those. And of course, we'll talk about why this deception is happening, and we'll speculate why else this deception might be happening.
We're on to something big here, and it affects all of you. It's the food pyramid, which turns out is a pyramid scheme.
That is well said. In fact, it is a pyramid scheme funded by the food industry, propagated by the government.
Big Food has been buying off scientists to study some of their unhealthiest products and recommend them as a crucial part of a healthy diet.
No, but science is science. Like, you can't, you can't pay scientists to find certain things that you want them to. That's not how science works, is it? It is? Oh, very good.
So now, we have a brand new food pyramid where frosted mini wheats are healthier than grilled chicken.
Sugar and processed grains are healthier than chicken. Is that so?
Swear. Primetime decided to dig into this little study today, and it was done by researchers at Tufts University, a safety school.
It's a university. We can't question them. They're scholarly folks majoring in gender science.
And paid for by Fauci's cabal over at the NIH, the
feels more trustworthy now.
So-called National Institute of Health. It claims that foods we thought were healthy, like meat and eggs, are terrible for us, and recommends replacing them with junk food, manufactured by America's largest food conglomerates. See where this is going?
Follow the money. Interesting. But I think there's something else to follow. We'll get to.
According to these new recommendations, we should moderate our consumption of eggs, cheese, ground beef, and rice, and replace them with foods that are more profitable for the food industry.
And if you look at the bottom of the food pyramid, processed sugar, processed grains, that is how you get diabetes. That's how you become insulin resistant. That's how you become very overweight. That's how you cause major oxidative stress in your cardiovascular system. If you look at the bottom of the food pyramid, you don't see complete proteins in there whatsoever. Nor do you see anything that native human beings would have been eating thousands of years ago when they were just living off the land, which some would speculate people out in nature eating a natural diet is kind of like what we're designed to eat.
Like frosted mini wheats, Cocoa Puffs, chocolate-covered almonds, and peppermint lattes. What about clean, healthy proteins like chicken, beef, and shrimp? Well, they want us to cut back on that. Cocoa Puffs are just as healthier than lean protein.
Actually healthier. More of them are suggested.
Now the government won't tell you this, but most of these junky foods they're pushing also just happen to qualify for food stamps. And you can't buy healthy food with food stamps, but you can buy as many chocolate-covered almonds as you want. And so the guys over at General Mills and Kellogg's hear this, and they know their money for studies at Tufts.
By the way, General Mills, Kellogg's, funding studies like this, they're in the business of grains. If you look at the U.S., there's far more grains grown here than any other type of food. So it makes sense why people making money from grains, specifically ones that become processed garbage, would fund studies to tell you to essentially buy more of their food. 6 to 11 servings of grains every day. It's like 6 to 11 servings of processed grains in a month. That's too much. But just do it every day. That'll be the right amount, right?
And grants to Dr. Fauci have paid off. So did they put these scientists up to it? And what about the NIH? Did they sign off on this? Did Fauci?
As corrupt as this is, this is the least evil thing those guys have done. So they kind of get a pass in my book.
They won't comment. Tufts won't comment. NIH won't comment. Rich companies are paying for fake science so they can get richer and you can get fatter, and the government is in on it.
Little does Jesse Waters know, Fauci is the science. So it's not fake science if it comes from Fauci. All of Fauci's scientific perspectives have come true, right? If you censor everything else that everybody else says, then it looks like Fauci's perspectives have come true. Usually the degree of truth something has, it's very proportional to the amount of censorship censoring other claims.
And it's working nearly everywhere. Every school, hospital, prison cafeteria, they all get the same stuff and the same guidance. And it's not going to end here. Soon, we're all going to be eating Frosted Mini Wheats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And crickets too, but also not on my watch. Why? Because I'm personally someone who can think for myself. I think you're someone who can think for yourself. So I'm not worried about you and I being inundated with this very deceptively designed propaganda that obviously is money motivated. Obviously, scientific institutions of the government, Fauci's NIH, they're in on the corruption, trying to propagate their suggestions as science when in fact they're simply funded by different sectors of the food industry. So I'm not worried about you and I. Who I am worried about is people who are influenced by propaganda, who will look at a food pyramid that's based on money motive, and they'll actually think eating that way is good for them, when in fact, it's the opposite for them. But here's my question for you. What else is their motive? The money motive is very obvious. Jesse Waters outlined that pretty clearly, and it's no secret. Over 20 years ago, I read a book called Food Politics, and it really outlines exactly what Jesse Waters is saying. So there's no question. The food industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, they're very motivated to make money. If helping people once in a while is a consequence of that, cool. If hurting people once in a while or all the time is a consequence of that, doesn't matter. Money is the motive. But what else is the motive here? I have a hard time believing that money is the only motivation. For a government to just be willing to propagate very deceptive misinformation that will result in people getting sick, disease, having a low quality of life, low energy, poor mental focus, being overweight. I have a hard time believing that that's their only willingness to compromise. So what else might be the motive? Well, you might not see it, but I regularly wear a tinfoil hat because it helps block me from the narrative. That's the beauty of tinfoil hats. They don't let the narrative in so you can think more clearly. So when I wear my tinfoil hat, based on how things look, and I could be wrong, but based on how things look, it looks like there's a deliberate attempt to weaken Americans, weaken their minds, weaken their bodies. Now, if you want to weaken a population so you can control them, you got to weaken both. If you look at the narrative, what's coming at people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week via the news and other propaganda, that is mental junk food. It makes people incredibly weak, not only because they start to believe deceptive narratives as though they're true, but it also means they're not using their own thinking to navigate their lives. So that thinking muscle gets weak, it gets lazy. So people become weaker mentally from the junk food of propaganda. But then physically, if you look at foods that literally make people strong, they literally build muscle, which makes people physically strong. Foods with complete proteins, eggs, protein, animal-based foods, especially like grass-fed animal-based foods. If you start telling people those are actually bad for you, now you're getting them to believe what makes them stronger will actually make them weaker. And then you're telling them the foods that will make them weaker, a bunch of processed grains, sugar, tell them those are going to make you stronger. Now they're looking at the medicine as though it's a poison, and they're looking at the poison as though it's a medicine, which results in weak people physically. If you combine that with the mental junk food of the narrative and propaganda, you have someone who is mind-body weak. It's very hard to control strong people. Very easy to control weak people. I do speculate that there's something bigger happening than just money motives with this deceptive nutritional information that is in people's least best interest. I do believe there's a bigger plan at place, shocker, to weaken people, because truly I believe the bigger plan in place is a plan to control people, but you can only control people if you make them weaker. What we put into our bodies day in and day out, it's either making you stronger or weaker, depends on what you're putting into your bodies. So I'm not surprised that there's like a new doubling down on weakening the food supply to weaken people, to make people more controllable. I could just be hallucinating, or I could be looking at the stone cold reality. Now you could say, well, JP, the government hasn't come out and said they're doing that. Well, if the government was doing that, they also wouldn't tell you they're doing that. It's full of gaslighting. So that's my take. That's my speculation. I could be wrong, but the worst part is I could also be right. But for me, what matters most is you and I doing what we can as freedom lovers to continually strengthen ourselves mentally and emotionally. Thinking for ourselves is a big part of that, as well as strengthening ourselves physically. That's why I think fitness is one of the most important things we can do. I think faith, family, freedom, and fitness essential for us, because freedom lovers, they have to be strong. Otherwise, we're just fans of the idea of freedom, but we don't have the resources to stand for freedom. If you and I as freedom lovers continue to stay committed to being strong mentally and physically, we don't have problems. I also think it's important that we help raise awareness so other people can wake up to the deception, because the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants, they tell you it's the sunshine, but in fact, it is a dark cloud in the sky of people. And I personally believe humanity deserves better than that. I believe all people deserve the choice of whether or not to live under that dark cloud or to go out and seek the brighter pastures of freedom. Lastly, I don't think I'm too far off base to say on the whole, health equals freedom. That's why I am very proud to be working with a sponsor of today's video, because they promote freedom by empowering people to be maximally healthy. Bon Charge in their infrared sauna blanket. Check it out. Freedom lover, I would love to thank the sponsor of today's video, Bon Charge and their infrared sauna blanket. Why infrared sauna blankets? Glad you asked. Well, studies have shown infrared sauna blankets are effective for helping provide relief from aches and pains in your joints and muscles, as well as supporting your body's natural detoxification processes. And that means stress relief, detoxification, and you're burning calories. Here's what else I love about Bon Charge's infrared sauna blankets. There's no question infrared saunas are very beneficial to your health. But the problem is, traditional infrared saunas are extremely expensive, costing thousands of dollars, and they're big and bulky, taking up valuable space in your home, creating clutter. But the infrared sauna blanket costs just a fraction of normal infrared saunas, and it's compact. You just roll it back up when you're done using it. Plus, here's what the other guys don't want you to know. In the infrared sauna blanket, you're actually much closer to the source of the infrared light, because it's right up against your skin, which means your body gets more benefit from it. And when I want to do a little extra getting away from it all while I'm in my sauna session, I just put on the Bon BondCharge Blackout Sleep Mask. If you want to start getting all the benefits of an infrared sauna at a fraction of the cost without all the clutter, then check out the BondCharge Infrared Sauna Blanket, only at bondcharge.com/JPReacts, and use the discount code JPReacts for 15% off. That's $140 off your very own infrared sauna blanket. Again, that's bondcharge.com/JPReacts, discount code JPReacts. Enjoy.